What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be talking about Sparkle, her Eidolons, and her signature light cone, and what kind of percentage increases in damage we can expect from her. So if you enjoyed this type of content, make sure to let me know by leaving a comment in the comment section below, liking the video, and also subscribing to the channel. We're almost at 3,600, which is kind of nice. So thank you for that. Let's get right into it. All right, we already went over Sparkle's kit. That's in the previous video. If you haven't checked that out, go ahead and hop over there. But her E1, her E2, and her S1 I'm going to be discussing in today's video. I'm only going to be focusing on these three things because I don't want to go past that. E4 and above is whale territory, like ultra whale territory. So I'm not interested in covering that stuff. I kind of abbreviated what her Eidolons and her signature light cone does. So for her E1 is going to extend the ult buff duration for 3 turns instead of 2. So that extra 10% damage bonus you get from the ultimate is going to extend to 3 turns now, which will probably make it for it to have 100% uptime because every 3 turns you can ult spam every 3 turns. So that's good. And then also it's going to give you a 40% attack buff that lasts for 3 turns, and since you're ulting every 3 turns, it's also going to be 100% uptime on that 40% attack increase. So this is a really great Eidolon already. Like, I see a lot of value coming from this Eidolon alone. All right, moving on to her S1 is going to increase Sparkle's crit damage by 32%, which kind of translates to about 8% crit damage increase to allies because of her crit damage conversion when she skills. And then also she's going to be providing a 100% uptime on 10% crit rate and 28% extra crit damage. In total, the S1 is going to provide allies about 36% extra crit damage when it's all said and done. Her signature light cone is more like a comfort light cone, is more of a let's make it easier to build type of light cone because it gives you 32% crit damage, which makes her easier to build, and then also gives your teammates 28% crit damage and also 10% crit rate, which may fill in the gaps. 10% crit rate is about 4 rolls in crit rate from substats, so that it's a huge gap in crit rate that this light cone provides. If you're one of those players that struggles getting your crit rate benchmarks, then this will help you get there, which with an extra 10%, like I said, is really nice. All right, so as far as our E2, as long as you're using skill points, you're going to have 100% uptime on 24% defense ignore, which is not reliant on effect hit rate or on hitting a debuff. This is really big because you're going to get this essentially for free because you're using skill points anyway. That's why you run Sparkle. You run Sparkle because you need to use skill points. And since you're going to be using skill points, every time you use 3 skill points, after the first time you use 3 skill points, if you use just 1 skill point per turn, you should be fine. Like, they're never going to run out. And you're going to have 24% uptime on defense ignore for the entire team. That is crazy to me because it has nothing to do with the Cypher. It's just because of her stack. Like, her stacks also give you 8% defense ignore. And you can stack up to 3. So, I don't know. It just makes it... this Eidolon's really gnarly. It's really good for a support unit. Yeah, I think this is the second support unit in the game that gives you defense ignore as a support ability, and we already know how broken E1 Ruan Mei is. E1 Ruan Mei with her defense ignore is really good, and this is just as good. I mean, it's a little worse because it's 40% versus 24, but it's really good because you have 100% uptime on it. You can keep it up the entire time. Ruan Mei is only 1 shields. So it's a really good and strong Eidolon right here. All right, for the calculation portion of the video, I'm going to be using a Doctor Ratio because everybody has Doctor Ratio as our test subject. He's going to be working 150% base crit damage. He has 180 here because of his talent, as well as the 50% damage bonus is because of his talent, because of his stacks. So we're assuming we have 5 divas on the enemy, we're going to have an extra 30% crit damage and 50% damage bonus. Our Sparkle is going to be working 180% crit damage, which gives us about 88.2% extra crit damage when we do the conversion. And then the damage boost is going to be from her ultimate with all 3 stacks and all that jazz. These 3 boxes right here, this one is going to be for the skill with 150% multiplier. The ultimate has a 240% multiplier, and the follow-up attack has a 270% multiplier. And these all get adjusted depending on what we change. So not a lot of calculations to do today, but let's get right into it. The baseline is going to be 57,218, and this is just with E0 Sparkle, which I have right here. It's 103% increase as I denoted in my last video. Okay, the first thing we're going to do is add the E1, and for this, realistically, the only thing we have to calculate on top is going to be the 40% extra attack. And for that, we're going to have to figure out what is Dr. Ratio's base attack. And for that, I'm just going to do it off cam, but it's essentially Dr. Ratio's base stats plus the base stats of the light cone. And for this, I chose the free-to-play Cruising in the Stellar Sea light cone. So let me do that real quick. All right, Dr. Ratio's base attack is 776. Plus 529 from Cruising in the Stellar Sea gives you a total of 1305, and then we take 40% of that, and that's what we're going to be adding to this number we have right here. So we add 3,261 plus 522, and that gives us a total of 3783. So let's just adjust this to 3783. As you can see, our damage jumped up to 66,378. We're going to copy that, paste it over here, and I already have it set up to where it gives us the percentage increase. That is a 16% increase in overall damage, which isn't that bad. I mean, is it worth a whole Eidolon? I don't know, but also keep in mind that the E1 is making your buffs last a whole 3 turns. So it's extending your DPS window for a whole nother turn. So that is not accounted in here. So if we were to extend this over a series of 4 turns, this number would be a lot higher. It would be a lot higher. Just keep that in mind. All right, next thing on the list is going to be the E2. So on the E1, we have to add a 24% defense ignore. So for that, we're going to go down here to the defense ignore table. And when we put 24% there, it's going to add it up and automatically update the numbers. We're going to copy 76 over here, put it over here. And that is another 33% increase to this. So this is our baseline, and then this is a 33% increase to that. So not too bad. All right, moving on to the S1. For the S1, we already removed everything else, so we are back to the first number. So now we have to recalculate her extra crit damage buff because we increase her own crit damage by 32%. So if she had 180, we're gonna have to add 32%, and then we'll multiply that by 24%. So it's 50.8%, and then we're gonna add 45. So with the S1, the extra crit rate that he is going to be getting is from her passive is going to be 95.55, but we also get an extra 28% over here. So we got to add 28% over there. So it's a total of 123.88%. So let's go ahead and add that 123.88. Bada bing, bada boom. Beefy crit damage right there. We're also not taking into consideration the crit rate that we get, but we're assuming that we're critting for the sake of simplicity. I understand that you're not going to crit all the time, especially with Dr. Ratio. If you miss a crit, your DPS goes out the ass. But assuming that you're going to crit every time, this is what it's going to be. Okay, so the damage is going to go to 64,830, which is pretty high. Paste that there. 13% damage increase, and right now you can already see that the E1 is looking like it's better than the S1, and it totally makes sense to me. Okay, because he already has a lot of crit damage bonus. Sparkle was already giving him a lot of crit damage bonus. So adding in an extra, like, what, 50%, 40% damage bonus on top of that, I don't think was going to make that much of a difference, okay? So about 13%, about 3% less. It's still substantial, don't get me wrong. 13% extra damage is still pretty good. It's throughout a battle. So over 10 attacks, that's another instance of damage. So, okay, now that we have the E1, we're going to go a little further. Add the S1 again. So the number for the S1 was 3783. So let's just add 3783 on all 3 of these. Okay, and then this is essentially what it is, the E1 S1. So let's copy that. And as you can see, E1 S1 is still less than the E2 by itself. Just because that defense shred on the E2 is just so good. And that is just him by himself. You know, like there's no other defense reducing effects in effect here. If we were to add E1 Run May, Pella, Silverwolf, any of those units that do defense shredding or defense ignoring to your team or to the enemy, this 24% defense ignore, actually wait, do we do 24%? Yeah, the 24% defense ignore from the E2 is going to yield more and more damage the more defense ignore we stack on. I think we are tired of hearing that, but it's just something we have to like repeat because it is true. And now finally, if we just happen to add the 24% defense ignore, I think our damage is just going to go like really high up, 86,000. So about a 50% increase in damage with the E2 S1. Personally, I do not think that the S1 is needed. If you happen to get the S1, right, it is because you want your characters to be easier to build. I understand that. If you can get 180% crit damage on your Sparkle without the light cone, I would go with that. And I'm gonna put out another video where I discuss the Sparkle's best light cones. I have the sheet over here. I haven't started it, but I'm gonna start it as soon as I'm done with this video. I'm gonna start working on the Sparkle light cone, and you're gonna be surprised because I'm already like forethinking foreshadowing what the results are going to be. And it's going to surprise a lot of people. I think I may be wrong. I won't know until I do the calculations. But if you can pull one thing aside from Sparkle herself, I say E1. I'd say go for the E1. If you can pull two, I'd say go for the E2. If you can pull three things, then obviously go for the E1, E2 S1, obviously. But honestly, I don't really think the S1 is worth it unless you just don't have any crit damage like at all. I wouldn't even consider the S1. The actual damage increase that you get from the S1 is not even that much. Like getting an extra 28% crit damage and another like what 36% crit damage, I don't think it warrants 180 pulls or 90 pulls. You know, to me that is just not worth it. So if I were you and you were looking to pull either her in the light cone, I would just pull her in the E1 or her in the E2. I wouldn't worry about the light cone. There are really good light cones that actually work extremely well with Sparkle. Okay, as always, I gave you guys a little chart visual representation of the data shown. For some reason, Excel was acting up. It didn't want to let me like do it in order. It was messing up the whole table. So hopefully you guys like are able to understand it. But essentially, E2 S1 obviously is going to be better. But out of the other ones, out of the E1 or S1, the E1 is going to be about 3% better than the S1. And E2 is going to be better than the E1 S1 as well. So E1 S1 lies over here at about what, 31%, and then the E2 lies at 33%. So you can make the argument that the S1 you can use it on other characters, sure, but keep in mind that the crit damage bonus you get from the S1 only and exclusively helps Sparkle. And the reason it doesn't help Bronya that much is because if you have Bronya's light cone, like it could help Bronya. Of course, it's good on Bronya. But if you have Bronya's light cone, Bronya needs all the SP help that she can possibly get. So if you have Bronya and you have her light cone, you should probably be using Bronya's light cone on Bronya. You know, that's pretty self-explanatory. However, the other part of Sparkle's S1, which is the whole how to keep the crit rate and the crit damage buff active, you have to recover skill points. And the problem with Bronya is that if you don't have the S1, you're going to have to either trigger the 50%. You're going to have E1 Bronya to trigger the 50%, possible 50% chance of getting the skill point back, which counts as a skill point recovery. Or you're going to have to basic 4 times with Bronya to get the light cone's effect up, which defeats the purpose of running Bronya. So even though you do get crit damage from the light cone to Bronya, this light cone does not work that well with Bronya because the extra effects you get from the light cone like literally almost play no purpose. Like they have no purpose aside from the first 3 turns of battle. So if you are going to annihilate the enemy in 3 turns, fine, do you can run the Sparkle light cone on Bronya. But for most people, that is not going to be the case. So that's my take on Sparkle's light cone on Bronya. I don't think this light cone is necessary on pretty much anybody but Sparkle, and even in Sparkle, it's not even that necessary either. Yeah, that is going to be my breakdown on Sparkle's E1 versus S1. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this type of content in this video, and until next time, guys, see ya.